Okay, we continue reading from the Hatha Yoga Pradipika. Chapter 1, Sutra 11. This is lesson 24. Sutra 11. The yogin desirous of obtaining perfection should keep Hatha Yoga very secret, for it is potent when kept secret and ineffective when injudiciously revealed. We've seen this before, that you should keep yoga secret. Each time it appears in another form, but it's often when a new technique is introduced. Here, we're not yet receiving a new technique. This is the beginning of the Hatha Yoga Pradipika. Sutra 1 to 10 was an introduction in which we learned about the history of yoga. In short, we learned about the lineage to which the author of the Hatha Yoga Pradipika belongs. So we go to another stage where we get down to the practical things of yoga, starting with this sutra. I think I mentioned several times before that yoga is a wonderful framework of techniques and that have a very systematic approach, a very logical approach if you know how to look at them. And when followed correctly, it has a huge potential. Potential not only on a gross level, that it does make us healthier, stronger. It can help heal existing diseases. It can prevent future disease. But the main goal of yoga, the health, the physical aspects, are side effects, wonderful side effects. But the main aspect is awakening of consciousness, opening up of the crown chakra. When that leads to the manifestation of the royal characteristics, or the wonderful characteristics that are located there. This sutra is reflecting what is happening in our modern day world, really. When yoga is injudiciously revealed, it's not effective. That is the reality of most yoga classes. Doesn't mean that it's not good. It still has some benefits. Fitness, it will lead at least to an improved condition. But if you understand what yoga is about, you see that the elements that yoga is presenting us, that are important or that are instrumental in the wonderful developments that yoga has to offer, those elements are not present in most yoga classes. Even with reputed yoga teachers. Look at YouTube, any kind of yoga video, and you will, based on what you know now, you will realize there is no sattva in their practice. Sattva is the key element in every step you take in yoga. But it is absent in almost all yoga classes. This sutra says it all. If yoga is it is potent when kept secret, we should not keep this secret. If we are really interested in yoga, we need to find somebody who can initiate us into the depth, the secrets, the mysteries and the dogma in yoga. But if we end up learning from an instructor who has not had the benefit of proper initiation, it becomes reduced to a mere fitness class. And that is the reality, the sad reality of most yoga classes. And out of ignorance, and I don't mean that in a negative way, but just for lack of knowing better, many people buy it, many people fall for it. There are so many people who are interested in the wonderful aspects of yoga. But the sad reality is it is very difficult to find a place where they can properly learn it. Most people that eventually end up coming to our course, they have tried here and there and everywhere. And a comment that I've often heard is that whenever they ended up with a relatively serious class that just not only does physical exercise but also does some philosophy and goes a little bit deeper into yoga things, the comment that I've heard most often is, it left me with more questions than answers. And here I get all the answers I was always looking for. The mystery and dogma that is surrounding yoga and that you often get presented in yoga classes is caused by ignorance. Why is yoga surrounded by mystery and dogma? Out of ignorance, because the people that are presenting it do not know the answers. They do not know what's behind the practical meaning behind these texts. They do not have the ability to read between the lines and understand what the author is telling us here. That is what this sutra means. That it must be kept secret is not an indication that you should keep it from other people, not sharing it with other people. It means that you're looking at something precious here that deserves to be treated properly. And when treated properly, it is very effective. It has enormous transformative power on the true practitioner. So this is again, this is another way of the author emphasizing that what we are looking at here is very valuable. The text, the system, the framework is very valuable, provided that it is done correctly. Sutra 12. He who practices Hatha Yoga should live alone in a small hermitage, situated in a place free from rocks, water and fire, to the extent of a bow's length, and in a virtuous, well-ruled kingdom, which is prosperous and free of disturbances. What is described here are the ideal circumstances in which you would thrive in your pursuit of spirituality. What is described here is, in the past, it would be a monastery. A monastery that is far away from the hustle and bustle of daily life. Safe, secure, stable, with no want, with no lack of basic needs. It should be, so you should withdraw yourself, kind of, live alone in a small hermitage, a small community, in a place free from rocks, water and fire. If you read Ajita's comment, you see that he took that literally. But rocks, water and fire in that same order is the 3 lower chakras from the bottom up. Rocks represents earth, the element earth of Muladhara chakra. Water is water from Svadhisthana chakra. Fire is fire from Manipura chakra. What does this mean? Those 3 lower chakras are not only the location of our lower emotions and desires, which are a huge distraction if we try to pursue the spiritual path, but those lower chakras are also where our survival instinct is located, which is related not only to food, but also to security. Security, if there is lack of security, Muladhara chakra is greatly disturbed. Fear causes disruption in Muladhara chakra. Distraction by romantic interactions. That is the reason why temples and monasteries and even in Korea there are still schools where the sexes are being separated, just to try to eliminate the focus on study. Safety and security, that is reflected in the last sentence. A well-ruled kingdom which is prosperous and free of disturbances. A well-ruled kingdom free of disturbances and prosperous, that is a country like Korea. A country that is lacking these basic needs is, at the moment, is Ukraine, of course, but also Sudan is in the news for the conflict that is going on there. If you live in a place where there is lack of safety, security, stability, it is impossible to pursue spiritual endeavors, to follow a spiritual path. Because you always have to look over your shoulder. You don't even know if you're going to have a meal tomorrow. You don't know whether you still be alive tomorrow. You are busy with very other things that pull your energy down to your lower chakras, the earth, water and fire levels. And you can clearly see how powerful this is. This is not just yoga. Yoga is the science of life. A country that is relatively safe, there is no perfection, of course, but a country that is relatively safe, stable, secure, starts to thrive. First in a material way, and then in a spiritual way. I've witnessed this in Korea. When I came to Korea in 1996, this country was on its way to become a wealthy country, but they weren't there yet. There was lots of instability, stress, the people working 7 days a week, 14 hours a day. There was no room for heart. There was no room for spirituality. There was no room for love. And look at how much has changed in those 26 years. The stability, order in society leads to material wealth, and based on that material wealth, people very naturally start to lean towards spiritual development. That has happened in Europe after the Second World War. It has happened in Korea after the Korean War. First there is a time of turmoil, building up, everybody running around like crazy, and when things become stable, it starts to thrive on all levels. The opposite also is true. When turmoil occurs, when instability occurs, insecurity, often caused by conflict, everything falls apart. Economy falls apart. The country becomes poor, and this is the basic needs. The basic needs for health, wealth, happiness is a stable, safe environment. So here it is described from the point of view of a person that pursues spirituality, yoga in this case. But our government's main goal is exactly this: a well-ruled kingdom where there is law and order, where people feel safe, so that everything starts to grow and to bloom and to thrive. So it's micro scale when you apply this to your personal pursuit on the path of spirituality, but it applies to the whole of society. It applies to the whole world. The mata should have a small door and should be without any windows. It should be level and without any holes. It should be neither too high, too low, nor too long. It should be very clean, being well smeared with cow dung and free from all insects. Outside it should be attractive with a small hall. A mandapa is not a hall, it's actually a veranda, a balcony. A raised seat and a well, and surrounded by a wall. These are the characteristics of a yoga mata as laid down by the Siddhas who have practiced Hatha yoga. Now you have to see this from the point of view of the time that this was written in. It should have a small door and no windows. Here you have a very small window. Behind these, it's not important. I like windows. My first studios had windows on almost all the walls. But why do they say that it shouldn't have a window? That is because glass panes didn't exist. Window panes didn't exist at the time they wrote this book. So a window meant a hole in the wall through which the elements could just come into your house. Insects, mosquitoes, bees, whatever, lizards, spiders, everything could just go in and out of your house. So you don't want to be disturbed by all that. So no windows. And the door very small, because the door was also just a hole in the wall. And the smaller it is, the easier you can cover it with a piece of cloth or something. So that's what this, how you should see this. It should be clean, of course. When a place is not clean, you get distracted by the irritation of the lack of cleanliness. You just, especially when you pursue spirituality, you're more focused, you notice more than normal. You're more sensitive, you're more aware. And you know, at home, you do yoga on the floor, so you're the first one to see that the floor is not clean. So after yoga, I grab the vacuum cleaner and I start cleaning. It's just to avoid distraction. And the floor should not have holes. That is, of course, speaks for itself in the world that we live in, but at that time the floor was just clay. And it could be very wobbly, so it has to be smooth and straight, so that you, when you do your exercise, you're not bothered by imbalance or uneven floor that is disturbing you in your asana practice. Should be well smeared with cow dung. I'm not totally. I don't know exactly why they do this, but what I understand is that the cow dung was used as a cement, and it also keeps out bugs and what have you. So maybe because of that, it should be well smeared with cow dung. And being attractive with a small veranda. When we think about places of spiritual learning, is often very austere, right? No luxury, no enjoyment. But here, the author is telling us it doesn't have to be like a punishment or something, like living like a fakir, sleeping on a bed of nails. No. You're not doing yoga 24 hours a day. You're not doing asana and meditation and pranayama 24 hours a day. What is very contemplative is just sitting on your veranda in between your practice, enjoying maybe a nice cup of tea or something, or your meal, which you have to have 2 or 3 times a day anyway, and just enjoying the environment. The birds singing in the trees, the wind blowing in your hair, the sun shining on your skin, just the enjoyment of sitting on your veranda. And modern building regulations ordain that houses should have a veranda. And in Europe, all houses have a veranda. Now, interestingly, in Korea, that regulation exists too. The house where I lived, I saw a photo from when it was built. Soon after it was built, I live in the first Western apartment that was built in Korea. That's Shibom apartment. And that is now around 55 years old. There are no verandas. But I saw photos where there were verandas. People have just covered it up and extended the living room to the outside wall. It's a very common practice. Almost all houses, you have these villas and you have the apartments. Almost all, the regulation is there. It has to have a veranda, but it's very flexible here. You just work around it in a way. Even when they sell a new house, they say that there is an option that you can actually extend your living room by integrating the veranda into but in Europe, of course, this is illegal and you would never be allowed to get away with it, but here there's just no enforcement, apparently. But the reason why is exactly the same as here in yoga. A veranda adds to the well-being of the people living in that house. That you can just spend some time on your veranda drinking tea or a coffee or just enjoying the sunshine or what have you. "14. Living in such a hermitage, being free in mind of all cares." This is the key, being free in mind of all cares. The yogin should practice only yoga all the time in the way taught by the guru. In the way taught by the guru indicates, and this is an indication that you find many times, indicates that you need to be properly initiated into yoga to have the full benefits from it. practice yoga all the time, that doesn't implicate that you must practice yoga 24 hours a day. That's simply not realistic. But life becomes yoga, yoga becomes life. For many people, yoga is something as an extra activity in life, like you go to a restaurant or you go to a cinema, you go to a yoga class. But if you do yoga correctly, it leads to a transformation, and whatever it is that you do in class, one way or another integrates into your daily life. The way that you go about normal daily life activities. Everything becomes affected, influenced by what you pick up in the class. So you could say that your adoption of mindfulness translates into how you wash the dishes. It leads to people becoming eccentric. You know what that means? Well, many people think that being eccentric is a negative thing. That is because they think that people who are eccentric are a little bit weird. Because they are different from the masses of the people. But what is the typical characteristic of eccentric people? That is that they do everything in a very specific way. They have their own systems for doing things. And I'm talking about washing dishes. You have a certain order in which you do that. You have a certain order in which you stack them in the dry rack. If you let somebody else wash your dishes, you're irritated because they just, in your view, it feels like they are messing up or there's no logic in what they are doing. That is eccentricism. Being eccentric means doing things in a very particular way, but not just randomly in a particular way. It has a reason for you. You have a very clear motivation for doing things in that way. And it's very often in contradiction with how other people do it. Eccentricism is not a negative thing. On the contrary, it shows that it shows that the things that you do mindfully. It means that yoga has integrated into your activities. 15. Yoga fails by the 6 causes: overeating, overexertion, excessive talk, or the observance of unsuitable disciplines. Actually, unsuitable has been added later, so the observance of disciplines, promiscuous company, and unsteadiness. Overeating is clear. Eating means that your body has to digest the food that you eat, and that simply takes up energy. So if you eat a lot of food, your body is diverting lots of valuable energy to the process of digestion, which you then not have available for spiritual endeavor. That is why in temples, in retreats, food is very austere, very light, small portion, very austere. Overexertion, same. If you overexert yourself, you spend a lot of energy that you then not have available for your yoga practice, your spiritual endeavor. Excessive talk. Excessive talk. When you talk, it's impossible to contemplate. So there's nothing wrong with talking, but this is about laying the foundation for your yoga practice. In the past, traditionally, if somebody decided to follow the spiritual path, you should at least spend a couple of years away from your family and society in a secluded place where you focus only on your development. This still happens in seminaries when people choose to become a spiritual leader for church or mosque or whatever institution. You go to a seminary to be formed, to transform, basically, really, in the same way that yoga does. Excessive talk just leads to distraction. Observance of disciplines. Now, discipline is a concept. It can become negative, but we can't live without discipline. Discipline is necessary to achieve things in life, to achieve our goals, especially if we have a special wishes that we want to fulfill, things that in other people's eyes seem impossible or very difficult, at least, to achieve. We need discipline. We need grit to get where we want to. But discipline can turn against us, defeat the purpose, when it is too strict. We should never forget that we are only human, regardless of our lofty goals, of our spiritual endeavors and what have you. We're only human. And when you impose a rigid discipline upon yourself or other people, it leads to the opposite of what you try to achieve. Let's say, stick with yoga and say that you become enthusiastic about yoga. And so you say, wow, yoga, wonderful. I'm gonna do yoga every day. Because it feels so good, I have to do it every day. Every morning, 6 o'clock, you jump out of bed, you take a cold shower, and you jump on your mat and you do yoga. That works fine for a couple of days, maybe a couple of weeks. But then comes a day that you wake up and you say, I hate yoga. Why? Because you have imposed this rigid discipline upon yourself and you haven't allowed yourself simply to be human, to skip one day because you don't feel like doing your yoga today. It's the same with everything else. Children that are forced to study, they start to hate their study. Children need to play. If they're not allowed to play in between the studies, they will hate not only the teachers and the parents, but they will hate their study too. And remember the story of the girl whose father wanted her to be a top athlete. She was not interested, but she was forced to do it. She just hated everything and everybody as a result of that. And honestly, after I told you that story, I was very curious what has become of her. Because she must be in her early 20s now. And so much must have happened in the past 12, 13 years since she came to my yoga class. And I just really wonder where that went. I don't know how to find her or connect with them, with her or her parents, but that was a really tragic story. Discipline is necessary. If you overdo it, anything that you overdo, by the way, starts to work against you. You can see that in the same vein as drinking a glass of wine. It has certain benefits, positive health benefits, what have you, even on mental health and what have you. But you drink the whole bottle and it becomes a poison. And the same with discipline. The same with food, the same, anything that just is too much doesn't work anymore. Then we have promiscuous company. Now, when you see the word promiscuous, you think about relationships and having extramarital relationships or improper relationship. But that's not what this means. Promiscuous company is any company that distracts you from what you are trying to achieve. So anybody who is disturbing you, asking too much attention from you, or irritating you with their presence, or having a negative influence on you in terms of just distracting you from your yoga practice, for example. Unsteadiness is, of course, unsteadiness that is not exactly knowing what you want and why you want it, and just practicing once in a while a little bit, and then again not practicing, and not being sure of what you want to do or where you want to go with your yoga. 16. Yoga succeeds by the 6 qualifications: zeal, bold determination, courage, true knowledge, firmness of belief in the words of the Guru, and renunciation of people or unsuitable people. Zeal. Zeal means a certain enthusiasm. It comes from the word zealots, fanatic people in history. But zeal means you need to have some fire in you you need to have a genuine interest in pursuing what you are interested in. Zeal, a little bit fanaticism. I wouldn't want to be fanatic in that sense, but you get the point, I think. Bold determination. Stick to your guns. You decide to do something, then do it. Do not allow yourself to be distracted or derailed or anything. And if it happens, quickly get back on track. Get back to your focus. Bold determination. Stick to your pursuit. Don't give up. Courage. Why do you need courage for yoga? It's very simple. Not everybody is fit for real yoga, because not everybody is interested in increased sensitivity and consciousness, because it will lead them to inconvenient truths about life in general, about themselves, about their family, about their past. And for us, these are essential. We are hungry to find out. There are many people who really don't want to know. They just think that is a distraction or a disruption. Let's just go on with life as it is, in its shallow state, because that is how you do not have to be confronted with inconveniences. People who pursue the spiritual path, by definition, have courage. Otherwise, you wouldn't be able to pursue this. Your increased consciousness leads to many insights. There are many good insights, but there are also unpleasant things that you will become aware of, that in the end will have a positive outcome, a constructive outcome, but they will hit you at first, nevertheless. So courage is definitely a requirement. True knowledge. What is true knowledge? You read this book. There is not a word in this book that is a lie. But is it true knowledge? Not really. Because if you read this book, you're not very able to understand what the author there is trying to convey, because of this hidden meaning behind all the symbolism. What I'm telling you, that is true knowledge. That is based on contemplation of the text and conveying what is behind it. A true knowledge does not mean that it has to necessarily be your truth, but it's my truth. So, look, when you were in school, you have your favorite professors and you have your unpopular professors, right? As a student, you think that it's because of their personality. But I realized that unpopular professors are not busy with true knowledge. Unpopular professors are professors who just read from the book while they are in front of the class. They tell you to memorize a load of things that you need for your next test, and there is no passion, there is no inspiration, there is no energy in what they do. The popular professors are generally the professors that are really passionate about what they do. And they don't read from the book, but they will tell you about a subject based on their own contemplations and insights. And it helps you to fully understand what the book is actually trying to tell you. If you were to read the book on your own, it would be very dry and boring. But if the teacher is passionate about the subject, he will present it in a way that you become enthusiastic about it too. So it's all about approach, it's all about attitude. Renunciation of company of unsuitable people, that is very much in line with the promiscuous company in the previous sutra. Unsuitable has been added later, so the original text said renunciation of the company of people. In practical terms, if you live with people in a house, maybe you already noticed, when you try to do your yoga, while other people are watching TV, running around the house, doing their things, I may sound negative, I don't mean it like that, everybody has their own things, but when you are trying to do your yoga, it doesn't work. Because every movement, every sound distracts. What does that mean? If you live in a house with people, you try to plan your practice in such a way that you can do it while the other people are outside. Or while they sleep, maybe late in the evening or early in the morning. Or when people go to work and you have some time on your own at home, try to plan it a little bit in a way that everybody else is busy with their own things without disturbing you. There is an extension that is covering the yamas and the niyamas. They're a little bit different from the ones that we learned, but all related. The yamas that we learned are from the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali. There are 5 yamas, 5 niyamas. The yamas and niyamas, according to Svatmarama, there are 10 each of them, but you will see that they overlap and are all in line with the 5 yama and the 5 niyama that we learned. To do no harm, to speak the truth, to refrain from taking what belongs to another, to preserve continence, to practice forbearance, to have fortitude, to be merciful, to be straightforward, to be moderate in diet, and to be pure. These 10 constitute yama. Austerity, contentment, belief in God, charity, worship of God, listening to the exposition of Vedantic doctrines, modesty, a discerning mind, Yapa and sacrifice. These 10 constitute niyama, the experts in yoga say. We very elaborately discussed the yamas and niyamas, so I have nothing to add to that. Sutra 17 and the last one for today. Asanas are treated first because they form the first stage of Hatha Yoga. Asanas make one firm, free from maladies and light of limb. Healthy mind in a healthy body. Asana is the first active step in yoga. I'm saying active because you learn and contemplate yama niyama, but your first exercise starts with physical exercise before you do mental exercise. And the reason for that is energy. If the body is in a bad condition, the energy levels are low, it's difficult to pursue spirituality in general, not only just yoga, but any kind of spirituality. It's the reason why all spiritual practices have some form of exercise, sometimes in the form of a ritual, but Buddhists have their practice. In Korea is a great country to see spiritual communities. They all have their own form of something that looks like Tai Chi or a form of martial art or some kind of yoga. It's all part of spiritual practice because it generates the energy that we then use to allow the opening up of the crown chakra, the ultimate goal. A pleasant side effect of this is that you start feeling lighter, stronger, healthier. You start feeling better as a result of that. Questions? All right, let's have a short break. Next week we will start looking at the asanas that Svatmarama proposes, and it's very interesting also how he presents that.